You are listening to Survival Stories with Jacqui. Welcome, survival warriors. If you are a victim or survivor of trauma, then you're in the right place. In this show, we'll explore the extreme strength displayed by victims of trauma as they journey through life to the survival pinnacle. My name is Jacqui, and I am so grateful to be here today to share my survival with you. Here is this survival story. Let's dig deep. Hi, I'm Jacqui Gold. I started this chat show, Survival Stories with Jacqui and Friends, after quite severe experiences of trauma in my own life. And I wanted to share with you how that affected me, because what you'll see as you watch the different shows is that trauma affects different people in different ways. My trauma affected my life quite severely because it started in a way which I would never have expected it to. But let's start with where I am today. Today, I'm happy, I'm fulfilled, I'm a mother of 2 children. I am divorced, but I am happily divorced. And I am in a relationship and happy about that too. But what matters is that I also have been doing a lot of things which I lacked the self-esteem and the confidence to do for much of my life, which is I'm a speaker, I'm an author, I'm a qualified teacher, I'm a qualified accountant. I have my own business and I'm co-founder of a school. All the things that I always thought that I couldn't do because of my trauma. But over the years, excuse me, I learned to channel my real strength from within and to learn to love myself. And actually, one thing that I've learned from lockdown is that I quite like me and I quite like my company, which is something that I never thought I would be able to say. Now, what I want you to do is to take yourself, walk with me. I'm 14 years old, 14, and walking down the corridors in my secondary school. I've just been to reception because I've done my registration and I offered to take the register to reception. And I was in the saddest place that I ever have been in up to that point and up to today, really. Because there were tears in my eyes and I could hear all the voices. You're not good enough. You're a slag, which were coming from my schoolmates. And girls were only made to push prams, and girls would never come of anything coming from my father. And the lack of support from my mother and the silence from my brothers and sisters. So as you can see, this was quite a significant moment because I realized that whereas I'd once loved school, I was being attacked at school for being withdrawn. People thought other kids thought it was because I thought I was too good for them. And it wasn't. I just wanted peace, really. And at home, excuse me, my father was beating my mom on a regular basis. My brothers and sisters were not really acknowledging anything that was happening. And my godparents lived in the house and they didn't seem to do anything either. Neither did my grandfather, who I loved dearly. It just seemed to be coming from all directions. And I couldn't cope anymore. I decided today was the day. And I'd come to school with enough pills and alcohol, because there was always lots of that in our house. And I was going to go from reception to leave the school to go and end my life. And I was 14 years old, which most people would say I had the rest of my life to look forward to, but I couldn't see it at that point. I really could not see that there was anything left to look forward to, because I was either going to be at home in torment or at school in torment. Where was the choice? I thought like a 14-year-old, that was all it was. And as I went to leave the building, out of nowhere came a short, she was very small. She was a substitute teacher called Miss Carabin. And she was, "Where are you going, young lady?" And I broke down. And for the first time in my life, I felt like somebody listened. And she listened and she listened as I told her the story. That story started in the spring of 1979, when I was 11 going 12 years old. And at that point in my life, I was kind of used to, even though I shouldn't be used to, seeing my father beat my mother on a regular basis, and some vicious, vicious beatings. But any time out of that, he was quite a nice person, or so I thought at that time. Now I know better. So when my mother said it was time for the interviews for secondary school, I thought nothing of having to come home from primary school to be taken to my secondary interview by my dad. But you could always feel when something was about to happen with him, because the tension in the air was so serious. And even though I ran down the road from school, skipping, happy, with my yellow cardigan on, feeling really comfortable, and the, the way you feel when you're a child, when nothing's happening. As I entered the house, I felt the tension, but I couldn't understand why I felt it, because my mom was at work. And he came out of their bedroom and he summoned me and said, "Come in here." And I thought he was going to give me one of those, those pep talks about what to say and what not to say at the interview. But instead, he grabbed me and he threw me on the bed and he raped me. And he showed no mercy as to how much he was hurting me. And I can still see it today, as I still replayed it over and over in my mind over the years. And on that day, so many things died, because before I thought I had a dad. Since that day, I haven't, neither have I wanted one. Because if he could do that, because I remembered, I don't know how many people in London remember the Great Children's Party of 1979. It was a massive party in Hyde Park, and we were taken there by the school, and it was such a happy place, because I longed for happy places living in that house, with the violence and the noise and the chaos. The party was huge, and they gave us all badges which were about that big, and they were made of thick cardboard, and they had a little lion on them, and it said the Great Children's Party, Hyde Park 1979 on it. And I had it in my hand while he was doing what he did, and I squashed it with the pain that he inflicted on me. And when he finished, He just got up, and the smell, I, I can still smell it. But he just got up and said, "Go and clean yourself up. We've got to go." And that's exactly what we did. But as we walked out of the door, I put the badge, the badge down on the piano, which was in the hallway. And I walked out the door, and he still, after what he'd just done, took me to my school interview, and I said nothing, not one word. I sat there with my head down because I was still trying to process what had just happened, because I didn't understand. And I'd made a decision that when I got home, if the badge was still on top of the piano and if it was squashed, then that had just happened. But if it wasn't there, then I'd just imagine the whole thing and everything was okay and I had nothing to worry about. But when we got back from the interview, and I was still not saying anything because I hadn't had the confirmation of the badge yet, there it was. And some people would say, how do you remember that so well from 1979? It's because it was pivotal in the change that happened in my life on that day. It was the thing that changed everything, the way that I looked at things, the way that I dealt with things. It changed everything. And what's more, I went to go to my bedroom and he gave me £5 and said, if you tell anybody anything, I'm going to kill you and then I'm going to kill your mom. So there's your choice. And if you say anything, all your sisters and brothers are going to have to go into care, which will ruin the rest of their life as well, because your mom will be dead. And I just went empty inside, because how is a 14-year-old, and sorry, I wasn't even 14 at the time, an 11-year-old supposed to deal with that responsibility, that if I tell anybody, my mom would be dead, my sisters and brothers would be in care. And he put that on my head. It's a hard one. Sometimes I can't even find the words to describe how I was feeling. But it's a feeling that stayed with me for the rest of my life, this feeling that I need to protect people. This feeling that I wasn't good enough other than just to do what I was told in order to save people and protect people. Because he didn't stop there. He would periodically sexually abuse me over and over and over again, even to the point that when my mom was going to work, she worked as a night nurse, he would say to her, "Why don't we take Jacqui with us? She could come along for the ride." And I'd look at her like, why don't you question this? Why don't you ask him why he wants to take me? Because what he wanted was to take me so that he could take me to his other house. Because he had 2 houses. He wanted to take me there so that he could rape me there. And no one was stopping him. She wasn't stopping him. She wasn't questioning anything. And I couldn't understand it, even though I stuck by her all the time. That was part of my wanting to protect her, to stop her getting beaten up, because if I didn't do what he wanted me to, if I didn't succumb to him, then he would beat her up. And then he'd look at me like, you caused that. That's down to you. And this carried on until I was 19, and I left home at 21. He just kept on coming and no one stopped him. He got his own way through bullying, through violence, through alcohol, through all of the things that he could use to control the house. And I made a vow that never in my life will I ever be put in that position again. That somebody has that level of control over me. And some would say that that was a good thing, that I started to fight back early. And I still think mentally it was a good thing, because it made me have a goal to stick to, because I'm a person that if I say something, then that's what I'm going to do. I had a goal to stick to, and that goal was to never be controlled. But I got the execution of the goal wrong, because deep down, because of my low self-esteem, which came from the abuse, I longed for somebody to love me just for me, just to want to love me, because I felt like the way of showing love was to have sex, because sex is love, isn't it? Because that's what my dad did. I was still struggling with putting it all together. But over time, this started to show me that something was wrong. It wasn't adding up. I got married when I was 27. And I thought I'd lived the dream now. I've got a husband and we've got a life and I've got my own place and I'm away from my dad. And so everything must be okay now. Not actually focusing on the fact that my husband was very controlling. He controlled much of my life, but I would do anything to make him love me, to make him want me to be there, to look after him. Remember what I said to you earlier about my life becoming one long saving people, looking after people process. That is where I found myself in my marriage, wanting to save him, wanting to make him happy, wanting to look after him, wanting him to want me, which is quite an unhealthy marriage, really, wasn't it? But what mattered to me was not all of the underlying detail, but what mattered to me was I was married. I was away from my dad. He still had that control over me, because while he was in that control, where was I? Nowhere. So I had to really take stock and take up counseling, take up talking to more people. But I still asked them all along not to say anything. And I asked them to not say anything in the hope that they would say something. And then it wouldn't be my fault, would it? I just wanted somebody to challenge it, because if somebody else challenged it, then my sisters and brothers and mother would be safe. Don't worry about myself. It's not the right way, I know. But this is the kind of confusion that I was in. I should have been happier. I should have been, because after Miss Carabin stepped in back at school, I'm taking you back a bit now. Miss Carabin stepped in at school and she helped build me educationally. And educationally, I excelled. I've got 4 degrees now. Like I said, I've qualified in a couple of professions. I should have everything, shouldn't I? But the trauma had affected my mind in such a way that nothing could settle down, because I did not have that inner confidence in myself. I still looked down on myself. I still disrespected myself because I was used to being disrespected, first by my father, then by my husband. So I fought back. And one of the things that I fought back against, I got a divorce. And that was a big thing for me. And it affected me mentally because he turned even nastier than he normally was. He made things up. He decided that I must. He actually managed to convince everybody that I was having an affair, when I would never do that. I would never ever have done that to him, because I loved my husband, or I thought that was my idea of love. And I had a little girl, and I thought I had the dream, but he told everybody I was having an affair, and everybody around us, our immediate circle and beyond, started believing him. And I walked around with my head down, because what else did I deserve? Clearly I'd upset him. Clearly I had. It was my own fault, surely. That shows you the level of mind confusion that I was going through, and nothing could get achieved while I was going through that. So therefore I had to have counselling. I had to have serious counselling. I had to work in workshops in which I could sort my mind out and get things clear and build my confidence and build my self-esteem, and actually realize my strengths. And that one of my strengths was talking to people and being sympathetic and understanding and listening and hearing and feeling for those people, and understanding that no matter how way out a story might seem from what is normal for the listener, things happen in this world to people and it affects them in different ways. It might well have taken me 9 years, because I reported my father to the police when I was 20. And many people say to me, what took you that long? I've even been asked or told, you must have been enjoying it. That's why it took you so long. How could I? The school had done nothing. Well, Miss Carabin had tried, but was tied by school policy. And no one else seemed to be doing anything. So I had to fight the fight alone. But at this point in my life, at this point, when I was a mother, I realized there's a confidence within me that needs to come out. There's that confidence that says, I'm a mother and I will not have my child suffer what I had to suffer all my life. That real survival instinct started to emerge. And I started to realize that I had to do this and I could do it. And I remembered when I was 11 and I said that, I'm fighting back. And in my teens, where I said, no one will have this control over me ever, I decided to take control of my own life. I decided to be who I was intended to be. And that is a strong woman, a supportive woman, a woman who understands that men and women go through trauma. And not every man is a rapist. And not every man is an abuser. And not every man is a narcissist. And being able to sort things out in my way. So not feeling bad or being made to feel bad about how long it took for me to report the abuse. Because it's true, it happened. And nothing anybody says will ever make it unhappen. It's just with me for the rest of my life. But I've learnt how to manage it more. I have my bad days. I have days where I have flashbacks, and days where it all doesn't sit well with me, and I have to have a moment. I now have two children, a girl and a boy, and they understand when I say, "Mummy just needs a minute," and I'll go and sit alone and organize my thoughts, because I've gone through training to get my thoughts organized, to help me to manage the symptoms, but help me to live with what happened. It's not just about getting rid of the thought and putting the past behind you, because sometimes it's not that easy. For me, it was about managing the past and taking control of the future. And I have taken control of the future, because, as I said, today I have my own business. I manage kids' education and understand how it's not often easy for parents to manage their concerns about their children's education, but showing those kids how, in being able to express themselves well, in being able to talk about the things that are happening in their life, it frees their mind up to be able to accept a level of learning and to be able to recognize what that learning might do for their lives. It's in different forms. It's not just academic. It's in any form possible. It's about accepting oneself and not being ashamed of oneself, and not feeling vulnerable that people will use your past against you. Embrace it. It's part of me, and I am enough. That's what my tutoring business is about. That's what it's not even tutoring, it's more than tutoring, because every single child that comes through my business is important to me. Every single one of them are like my own child. I want them to succeed, and therefore I look after their minds as well as their learning. And I respect their choices, and I'll counsel them if I think that they should be thinking things a little bit differently. But ultimately, they have to grow up with whatever's happening in their lives and be able to manage it. I'm also co-founder of a school, We School, in which we help kids to embrace what's coming in the future and to be able to play to their strengths, to be fulfilled citizens. That is, high interpersonal skills, high academic or vocational skills, but a whole rounded person, not one who doesn't know which direction they're going. We help them find that direction. I'm a speaker. I've spoken on several stages about the effects of trauma and told my story. And I'm an author. I've written children's books to help children to work through things that give them learning blocks. It's all a learning curve. It's all about having faith and stepping out without knowing where that first step is going. It's about loving yourself. It's about enjoying yourself. It's about embracing your trauma. Survivors have gone through the darkness, walked towards the light, embraced their trauma, and have started to build a new life. So throughout this series, you will see exactly what I'm talking about. And you will see exactly how I handle questions like, how do you feel about your mother? This is how I feel about my mom. We've talked about this, and I said to her, I think that you knew, but I don't hold it against you because you didn't actually do it. But I think that you knew, you handled that badly, but I still love you. I never thought that the day would come when I could reason things out in that way. And that is why I consider myself a survivor and a friend to others. So over this series, over this season, And the next season, you'll hear stories about people like myself who have gone through the darkness into the light, some of the stories are really harrowing, but you'll see how the change came. And I really hope that it will help you if you find yourself in that position. Remember, if you have any questions, you can always contact me in the comments below or on jgeducate.com. You can, or even on jacquiandfriends.com. You can contact me. I'm here to help. Thank you. And there we have it, another empowering episode of Survival Stories. If you heard something today that resonated with you, please reach out at jacquiandfriends.com and download our free PDF. Don't forget to head over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review and rating. And whilst you're online, why not join our community of warriors on Facebook at Survival with Jacqui. Look forward to seeing you there.